Hi and welcome to the closing conference of the SMARCTIC project, both online and in Sundsvall, Sweden. My name is Sofia Makén and I work at the Regional Council of Västernorrland, and I will guide you through this closing conference. Today we will get a short summary from each participant in the project, and we will also get the opportunity to listen how the Regional Council of Västernorrland are working with energy efficient buildings, and also Mattias O'Nils from Mid-Sweden University about the potential of IoT-based solutions. But first I would like to say welcome to Anne-Marie, the SMARCTIC project manager at ERNACT. So please welcome Anne-Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sofia. Thank you. Okay. All right, there we are. Okay. Thank you very much, Sofia, for the welcome. Thank you to you and to Sandra for the warm welcome to all of us who've been able to travel to Sundsvall. It's very nice to be able to meet in person, so we definitely appreciate your hosting us. As Sofia said, my name is Anne-Marie McLaughlin. I'm a program manager with ERNACT, and we are the lead partners in the SMARCTIC project. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of background before we get some more of the fun information about what's been accomplished through the project. So the goal of the SMARCTIC project is to enhance the ability of 5 northern periphery and Arctic regions involved to implement energy efficiency and renewable solutions. So essentially the goal was to make it easier for our communities to become more energy conscious and more energy efficient, and essentially generate smart energy communities in the NPA regions. So transnational cooperation is key to achieving the results in SMARCTIC, and this project brought together a range of information and communications technology and energy specialist knowledge and experience from the partners from the different parts of the NPA. And the project allowed all of them to share their knowledge and their ideas so that we could ultimately come up with solutions that can be implemented anywhere in the NPA. So we have a partnership that's a mix of partners representing public sector, universities and businesses in Sweden, Finland, Iceland, Ireland and Northern Ireland, with associate partners then in Norway and Canada. And the objectives that we had to help us work towards the ultimate goal of increasing the capacity for energy solutions. So the first one is to create a framework or a model that's based on smart city thinking, but has been adapted to be applicable in remote, rural or sparsely populated areas. And then the second part was to test that model by using it as the basis for innovative energy pilot projects. And then the third part is to create a platform to share the model, to share details about the pilots and guidance from the partners who've implemented them, their lessons learned and recommendations, so that they can help other NPA region representatives to implement the model and benefit from the work that's been done in this project. So the first part of that is the model that the partnership came up with, called the Smart Energy Management Model, or SEM for short. So it's a technology-based framework that can be used to implement energy management systems in NPA communities. So it's adapted from smart city models, uses technology such as Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, to facilitate innovative energy pilots. So it enables communication between stakeholders, like public infrastructure owners or building managers, and the consumers or the public who use those buildings. And you doing that, it is these pilot projects can build awareness, trial new solutions, and hopefully change energy behavior of the communities. So overall, this model is providing a reference or a guide for designing a strategy to optimize energy consumption in NPA regions. And then when the partners did research on all the technologies that could be applied for these types of pilots, they came together and created the Smart Energy Management Model, and then they set about using the research and the model to design their own energy pilot projects. And so they're listed here. The titles of the projects themselves might not be very inspiring, but the partners' presentations will explain to you what these mean in the real world, and they're much more interesting and impressive once you get the information about what these pilots actually are and have already accomplished. So after the research was done, the model was created just as the partners were getting ready to start implementing the pilots. Unfortunately, we had to deal with the COVID pandemic and the impacts of that. So essentially all of the work that the partners did had to be conducted during a time of travel restrictions, mandatory working from home, lots of uncertainty, which impacted the actual pilot plans because some of them revolved around buildings that were no longer accessible. They also impacted interactions with stakeholders, and then there were logistical problems of actually accessing some of the buildings where the pilots were intended to be implemented. But despite all of that, the partners each managed to successfully implement the pilots, and they're already starting to see some real results. And these are just a couple of graphs and images to give you some idea. They certainly don't convey all the work that was done, but you can see some sort of quick examples of the type of information that's being provided to the stakeholders, like building managers and public building owners, to show the efficiencies that have already been achieved and to hopefully create further efficiencies and decrease waste and provide education and encourage behavior change. So each of the partners is going to share with you what their pilot is and what they've already accomplished in that. But as we wrap up the SMARCTIC project, the pilots are in place, the data is being collected, it's being analysed and used to create further efficiencies. And along with all of that, we are also putting together a smart energy business model to accompany the technical model, and that will contain all of the organizational, operational, financial, and other aspects that need to be considered alongside the technology and the data and the communication. And all of that, plus the SEM, the technical model, and the lessons learned and recommendations from the partners based on their pilot implementations, will all be made available on the SMARCTIC platform, the advisory services website, that we will be promoting over the next few weeks. And goal of that is to present all of the information and all the results from the pilot so far, and to encourage other NPA regions to join with the SMARCTIC partners to use the SEM and to benefit from the work that's been done in this project. So with all of that, and before we move on to the partners' presentations, I just want to take a moment to again thank Sophia and Sandra for hosting us here. Thank you all for participating today, and thank you to the SMARCTIC partners. It's been an adventure working together. We're not quite finished just yet, but it's been great working with all of you. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Anna. And then we move on in our schedule, and we say welcome to Oskar, who will talk about how Regional Council of Västernorrland work with energy efficient buildings. So welcome, Oskar. You need to unmute.
So, okay, you can hear me now.
Perfect.
it's uploading, so just a moment.
Now we can see it.
There we go. Can everyone see my presentation now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Great. Okay, as Sofia said, my name is Oskar Lindberg, and I work with energy and climate strategy at the County Council of Västernorrland, or Region Västernorrland, as we say. And I was asked to talk about how we work with energy efficiency in our buildings within the organization. So that's what I will do, and I will do it in some sort of overall basis. I don't know how familiar all of you are with Region Västernorrland, the County Council Västernorrland. So I will just give you a brief introduction. We are a public actor responsible for different kind of main activities. We're responsible for public health care, public dental care. We have regional development and some other activities on our responsibility within County Västernorrland. And of course, this means that we need buildings and facilities to provide those activities with. So we are one of the county's largest real estate owners. We have a stock of approximately 500,000 square meters that we need to manage and supply with energy and do it in a sustainable way, or as sustainable as we can. I was going to talk about our energy related work in a building, but I want to mention that we doesn't only work with or management and development of our stock of building isn't only about energy efficiency. We are talking about sustainable buildings, and of course energy efficient buildings are a big part of this. But question about environmental impact from more choice of materials in renovation, reconstruction, and social impacts also, and economics are of course highly important in this work. But since the team today are energy efficiency, I will talk about that, focus on that. So why is energy efficiency an important part of our management of our stock of buildings? If we start with this picture and look at our energy usage last year in 2021, we used approximately 36,000 megawatt hours of electricity and 39,000 megawatt hours of heat. That's mainly district heat. In total, this generated approximately 6,200 tons of carbon dioxide from our energy usage, and that's equal to maybe how much emissions 1,500 Swedes generates every year, and maybe half if we would count consumption-based emissions. So to minimize our climate impact are of course highly important when we're talking about energy usage in our buildings. What you also can see in this picture is that we over the years, we have from 2013 here, we have reduced both the use of heat and electricity. But this is maybe a more common way to look at the energy usage, to look at how much energy we use per square meter each year. In this picture, we have the red are heat and the blue are electricity. And as you can see, in 1995, we used almost 300 kilowatt hours each year. 2021, it was 165. 79 of those electricity and 86 was heat. So this means that over a period of 26 years or so, from 1995, we have reduced our energy usage with 45% over this period. We can also see that we have a forecast for 2024. I will come back to that later and talk more about it. But what does this mean? 45%, is that good if we compare it with a comparable other actors as other regions? For example, if we look at this picture, like I say, in Sweden we have another 20 regions with the same or similar responsibilities as us, but in their geographic area. And if we start with the graph to the left here, we are the red line in this one, and the blue line are on average for all other regions in this picture. And the one to the left shows the reduction of electricity and heat from year 2000. And what we can see is that from having an energy usage, and this is per square meter also, that having an energy usage per square meter that was above larger than the average region, we now use less energy per square meter each year. And the graph to the right actually shows the same result, but this is only for electricity. So we have achieved the same results here from using more electricity than the average region in 2000. We now use less electricity than the average region per square meters. So in a national perspective, we are successful in the field of reduction of energy usage and energy efficiency. And actually, since 2000, we have reduced our energy usage per square meter most of all regions in Sweden. Often when I present or talk about our energy-related work, I often show this picture because I mentioned earlier that work with energy-efficient building not only are about reducing our climate impact, but also, for example, economy, which of course are an important factor when we're talking about measures for energy efficiency, so we can motivate the measures. In this graph, the green line here are our energy usage. This is in megawatt hours from the period 1995 to 2020. The black line here are cost for energy, and we also have the red line that is what our cost for energy would have been if we wouldn't have reduced our energy usage the way we have. So as you can see, we have only this work has only resulted in an energy reduction with 45%. It also means that our energy-related costs now are less than half than what it would have been if we haven't worked with a systematic energy-related work with energy efficiency measures. And I mentioned that we had reduced our energy usage most since 2000. Actually, we now have the lowest cost for energy per square meter of all regions in Sweden also. Yeah, I also included in this in the title risk management. I think why did it? Because this also reduces the impact from volatility in energy prices, and we have a volatility that we are not that familiar to in Sweden, but we're starting to see it now. It's more common in other parts of Europe, but we're starting to see it now. So if we can reduce our energy usage, of course, we can minimize how exposed we are to this volatility in energy prices and the energy market. And this is also important, I think, to keep in mind when we're talking about measures for energy reductions. Okay, so I show you some graphs of our results now, but maybe this is most interesting to talk about what the factors of success are behind this. And start with, this is the systematic work that we have been carrying out for over a long time, but it's based on political decided energy goals. So there is no quick fix, even if, of course, some measures have a bigger or more effective impact than others. So over times, those goals have been formulated in different ways, but now we are working with a sustainability plan for the organization of the period from 2020 to 2024. And this sustainability plan is for different areas of the organization, but energy-related goals are included in the sustainability plan also. So we have our energy efficiency goal, stating that the total energy usage in our building, so the organization's building, should decrease with at least 12% to 2024, or the end of 2024, compared with 2018. And this also means that we should have, or the energy usage per square meter cannot be more than 150 kilowatt hours each year in the end of 2024. I'll show you this picture again. I mentioned the 2024. What you see here are, we have the base year, 2018, and then the goal 2024 that we are working towards. As mentioned, we used 165 kilowatt hours each year in 2021, so we have some more kilowatt hours to reduce. And in total, this reduction will mean a total reduction in energy of 11 gigawatt hour between those years, if we compare 2018 and 2024. And even if this work is based on energy goals, as I mentioned, it's the systematic work over time that has made this possible, together with action plans for how we should reduce our energy usage, yearly action plans that we have been using. And regarding measures, we are talking about improvements in ventilation, heating, cooling, and also lighting installations, improvement in climate shells, and the use of, and also verification in use and verification of high energy requirements when we are renovating or stock, and also construct new facilities. And I mean, verification is really important, so we know that we get what we want, but also that we learn what works good and what work less good. And I think that just this part on verification isn't always used maybe as it should. So this is important, but we have also a focus on improvements in already existing installations. So we improve them, and also improvements in our possibility to monitor our energy usage, so we can follow up on the usage. And one strategy that we are using and always try to use is to utilize the building's geographic location and the precondition that we have to minimize the energy demand. One example are our snow cooling system in Sundsvall that you visited earlier today. So here we use snow that we store from the winter and utilize the meltwater during warmer periods, so during the summer, to cool the hospital and equipment in the hospital. And this means that we use around 90% less electricity for cooling of the hospital than we would have if we would have used conventional cooling machines. Of course, this number can vary depending on the circumstances and so on. But it's a solution that has served us very well. And this is just one example of how we are using the geographic location for cooling. In other places, we use water from rivers or the sea for cooling, but also from the bedrock and of course the outside air when the temperature allows it. I added this picture since you visited our snow storage or snow cooling system today. So now it's the end of August, so the storage is almost empty. But in the, let's say, beginning of May, it can look like this. So this is snow storage stored for the summer. So if we have had a good winter, we can have maybe 70,000 cubic meter of snow, or even more, depending on how the winter has been. But I think Patrick told you more about that earlier. So here's the snow covered in wood chips, so we don't it's exposed to the sun and warmth. And this is another example of how we're trying to utilize geographic location in relation to our buildings. For a while ago, we built a new ambulance station in Örnsköldsvik, so in the northern part of our county. And to try to minimize the energy demand, we involved the staff from the ambulance early in the planning, the process, together with the architect of this ambulance station, so we could plan the facility after the staff's need, but also from an energy effective perspective. So bedrooms with a need for cooler temperature are placed on the north side, and we have more social areas on the south, together in combination with sun protectors, so we can utilize the sun during colder periods and then use the sun protectors during warmer. And this is no high-tech solution. This is just easy planning, so we can minimize the energy demand, and then later we can add a good technical solution for the remaining energy demand in our facilities. So pretty simple way, but it's important. So that's when we are building new facilities. This is of course harder when we have already existing building. Actually, our stock of buildings are built mainly in the 60s and 70s. So we have some challenges with our buildings. So in existing buildings, we of course have to adjust to already existing conditions, and this is a challenge for all building owners, of course, and especially maybe when we're talking about energy demanding solution or installation as ventilation. But a real estate organization finished a project not that long ago where they were trying to handle this type of challenges. This was a project called ERFlex that was partly financed by the Regional Development Fund. And in this project, they have developed a general ventilation concept where we have high in energy, environmental, and climate prestanda in the ventilation system. And this is one part of Sundsvall Hospital. But it serves as a kind of platform for future renovations in the hospital. So this is a demo project. And this has given us a high effective ventilation solution. But most of all, and why I show you this, is that it has given us a solution that we know works, and that is possible to scale up and apply in other situation. And we are doing this because the development of methods and models that we know works, and that we can expand are of highly important if we want to transform our already existing stock of buildings, and also to create a more sustainable building stock. And this project is actually pretty high technological. It could have a presentation in itself. So if you want more information, just contact me and we can talk more about this project. And beyond the energy efficient goals, we have a goal for production of renewable energy also, stating that in 2024, at least 4% of our electricity usage should be produced by ourselves with renewable sources. And these two goals can't be separated. If we want to reach this goal, we have to work with energy reductions and energy efficiency measures also. But and even if it isn't stated here how we should produce this electricity, except from it should be renewable sources, we are doing this from the production of solar panels. And that's for different reasons, but that's what we have shown here. And what you see here are installed power since 1994, when we installed our first facility. This was only 7 kilowatts, so not so large. That's 28 years ago. And it's still up and running. So this is also a long-going work that we have conducted within the organization. And in this picture, installed capacity every year are the blue stack here, and accumulated are the green. And over the years, with a start in 2010, we have developed and expanded our stock of solar power, the installed capacity. And by always trying to, in combination with renovations on roofs and the facade of buildings, always try to add new capacity to those buildings. And also when we are building new facilities. So right now we have a capacity of around 1100 kilowatts. And in different forms. And when I say different forms, this is one example. This is our hospital in Sollefteå, where we have combined solar panels and sun protectors. So we can reduce the heat load and lower the demand for cooling, and at the same time produce electricity. So what you see here are the sun protectors with solar panels, and this is above the windows of the hospital. So it doesn't only use conventional installation, even if the most part of capacity, of course, are installation on the roofs of buildings. And so this is another example from a new installation where we are covering we are renovating one of our offices, and the ventilation room on the roof of the building we are covering with integrated solar panels. And this is one way that we work with new solutions, because integrated solar panels are new to us. We haven't used it before. So we always try to use new solutions in a small scale, and then we can see how it works, and if we like it and if we feel comfortable with it, and then we just can add it to our toolbox of measures and expand it when the circumstances are right. And if we look at how much electricity we produced in 2021, it was almost 800 megawatt hours, which was equal to 2.2% of our total electricity use. And that's the purple staple. It's a lot of staple information in this picture, but it's the purple staple. Actually, due to COVID, our work with expanding our capacity was affected. But now in 2022, we are installing another 368 kilowatts. And this will give us a total of 1500 kilowatts of installed capacity. And according to my calculation, I hope it will produce around 1200 megawatt hours each year. But it means that we'll need to install 145 kilowatts more if we want to reach our goal of 4% of our own production of electricity by 2024, or by the end of 2024. So we also have 2024 on us. But of course, this is under the condition that we also reach our energy efficiency goal. But I think this is possible. Yeah. Oh, I think I will end my presentation with this. This is a schematic illustration of energy usage in buildings over time. that represent the development we are seeing pretty well, and that I think only will grow. And it's interesting when we're talking about the SMARCTIC project, when we're talking about energy behavior and usage among energy consumers. I tried to translate it, the illustration. I hope you can see what I mean. But over time, we have reduced, as I showed you, our energy usage for the operating of our building, and that's what illustrated in heat, or red, and then we have in the bottom there green. I think it's green for electricity for the operating of our buildings. But what we're seeing are that the electricity used by the activities within our buildings are increasing. That's what's illustrated in green, and the electricity used for the operating our buildings are blue, of course. So that's the green area. We are seeing that use of electricity increasing. And of course, this is understandable for many activities in an organization with same responsibilities as us. The healthcare, and then the equipment in the healthcare are increasing and being more and more advanced, so we can deliver advanced and quality healthcare. So this is of course understandable, but we're also seeing more equipment in other parts of our organization that create a challenge because this when we're seeing this electricity usage only increasing, it can risk to neutralize a part of the electricity or the energy reduction we are doing within our stock. So this is a challenge. And another challenge is, of course, that all this equipment are generating a big heat load within our buildings. And this, in combination with a warmer climate, we have a growing demand for cooling. We want to solve this in a sustainable way. I'll show you some example of it, but with a warmer climate, this is hard. It's harder to supply those buildings with sustainable cooling. So this is a challenge for us and something that I think will grow, not only for us, also for other actors. And this is something we have to solve if we want to have a successful work with energy efficiency. So I believe that we have to work more on the demand side and not only on the reduction if we want to have a successful work and keep having a successful work with energy efficiency. So we can use energy smarter and more sustainable. Well, that was all from me.
Thank you, Oscar. Are there any questions before we move on? No, doesn't look like that. So then we move on. Looks like my microphone is on. You don't hear me. That's interesting.
Everyone's afraid to speak.
Are there any questions, or was everything clear?
Yes. For example, how do you see the electrification of transport? Do you add that in when part of that will by things?
Of course, if you look at our stock of cars, we have electrified vehicles and of course charger also in some part of our facilities for our own cars within the organization. But also there are growing demand from the personnel to be able to charge their cars, their private cars. And this is something that we are looking into, how we want to solve this. Of course, that's a challenge, trying to handling the effect or the capacity. So it's something we're looking into, and I don't know, maybe Sofia can talk more about this, but we don't know exactly how we want to solve this now, but we are looking into it and what can be the most sustainable and most effective and good solution for our organization.
I can just ask a question. In terms of policy, do you just follow national policy, or what is national Swedish policy in terms of renewables for public buildings? What targets do they have, say, for 2030?
Do you mean targets for the use of renewable energy in a building, or just like the energy usage in buildings?
Well, the renewable alternatives, like in Ireland, the national policy would be that 50% of energy in public buildings has to be from renewable sources by 2030 in all public buildings. Is there any policies like that in Sweden?
No, we have no policies regarding that in public buildings, how much energy that should be renewable. Of course, the situation in Sweden are pretty comfortable for us. If we look at the electricity production in Sweden, we have like 2% from fossil fuels. That's the production in Sweden. If we look at like the whole transmission system that we are included in, the electricity mix looks different. So that can be discussed, how we want to look at that and how we want to calculate our impact from electricity usage. And if we look at like district heating that we use most, it varies, but it's most biofuels. Some other cases we also using like trash garbage, and so that's including some plastic that creates problems. But we don't have any policy that I know of for how big part that should be renewable sources. But then of course we have policies for how much energy we can use per square meters and so on. But that's in new buildings. There are discussion also on EU level for already existing buildings. I mean, or Stockholm, most of as I mentioned, all the existing buildings, and that's a challenge to work with energy reductions in those buildings. But there are any policies that I know in that area now. No.
Thank you, Oscar. Can you hear me now? Strange.
We can't still hear you, Sophia.
Okay, so Sophia has some problem with the sound, so we're just gonna move forward. Thank you, Oscar. And now we're gonna go to the project summary. So we're gonna start with Heather Young from Northern Ireland. We will see if her presentation is working. We go.
Hi, I'm Heather Young from Derry City and Strabane District Council in Northern Ireland. This is a map of the region. So you'll see to the left we have Letterkenny and Donegal, and you'll see the region in blue where Strabane is, and the square is Derry, Londonderry in Northern Ireland. Okay, so our council area is around 1,200 kilometres with a population of over 150,000, and the council within the region employs over 1,000 people. So within the SMARCTIC project, we decided to look at the feasibility of a power grid or a virtual power plant pilot. So this is the dashboard that was developed at the end of the project. So what we looked at is what did we already have that was generating electricity. So within 5 of our council buildings, we had solar power, solar generation. So these are not obviously not actual pictures, but these are the icons that are in our dashboard. But just to start, Derry City and Strabane Council committed to a policy of reducing our carbon emissions to 0 by the year 2045. So these 5 buildings have solar panels on them. The largest one is the recycling centre in Strabane, and it is over 50 kilowatts of solar on the roof. The other buildings have 12 kilowatts each, and Melvin Sports Hall in Strabane has 20 kilowatts of solar power. We were also able to look at the buildings that are consuming electricity, and the largest of which is Spoil Arena, which is a large leisure centre in the waterside in Derry, and it consumes 25% of the total council energy. So it's one of the key focus areas that we want to reduce energy. We also modelled data from some of the other larger sites where we collect and monitor energy usage. This is our energy management system. It's called WATIX. We installed this in 2018, and we've added buildings to this as the years have went on. So basically, we can monitor and measure the electricity and gas consumption and some water consumption within some of our key buildings. And then that was modelled within the dashboard. We also looked at additional renewable sources, because obviously our solar panels, we knew weren't going to be enough to demand the power that was required at our larger sites. So we were able to model data from local wind turbine, and we also looked at some of the data that was coming from biogas plants within the region that were close by to our council buildings. We also looked at how could we add energy storage into the system. So it allows us to look at times of the day when power prices are high, and decide when to store and when to release energy. Also, the power grid looks at the grid, the national grid, which is also using fossil fuels, and saying, well, when do we need these fossil fuels and when can we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels? So it does, so there's machine learning involved, and it decides when do we buy from the grid, when do we store energy, whenever there's extra power in the system. So at the end of that pilot, this was the result. So this is the dashboard that was developed. So you see the green lines are showing the power flows going into the battery storage or going to other buildings. There's also the power coming from the grid, and then there's a battery storage system in the middle. From this study, we were able to decide if we went forward in the future and decided to install battery storage within the council. This is helping us to plan ahead to see in the future what size of batteries do we need in our system to be able to become self-sufficient. So from the power and from the information we've gathered so far, we reckon that we're probably going to need between 150 and 200 kilowatts of battery storage into the system. We would also need to take additional renewables from wind turbines or from AD plants to become totally sustainable and become off-grid. But this is just really planning for the future. It's seeing what's feasible, what can be done with buildings, transferring energy from generation sites to consuming sites. So that was really all I wanted to talk about in terms of our pilot. And if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Heather. So I'm going to leave the word to Ragnar and Siggy from Iceland to introduce themselves and their projects.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, just to say a little bit about what we do. I'm Ragnar. I work at the Energy Authority in Iceland, mostly on the Energy Fund, and we are sort of helping with the transition from oil in Iceland. And my colleague Siggi over here, slightly blurred intentionally, so you won't recognize him in the street. Sharing with you a presentation coming up. There we go. Okay. Orkusetur is our name in Icelandic, but it sort of translates as the energy agency, but it's a part of Orkustofnun, the energy authority. The SMARCTIC project, just as a reminder, is focusing on using IoT technology to help with the management of energy use, but we have been using this project also to help with air quality indoors, while also taking care of the energy consumption. Not to increase it too much, but primarily increase the quality of air indoors. We spend a lot of time indoors, and the focus was on children and sort of primary schools, and of course in rural areas. And we have, I don't know if the pointer shows up, but there are 3 target areas. Okay, didn't flip. First one, second one. Yeah. Okay. Seems to be frozen there. So I'll stop sharing. Stop share again. Yeah. So these are the areas we are working on. In the far east is in the northeastern corner is Borgarfjörður Eystri. It's a small village, basically. Very few people living there. In the center part, in the north center, that's Akureyri, the town we live in, and that's a town of 20,000 people. And we are operating there also with a number of solutions I will tell you about. And then also on an island north from Iceland called Grímsey, and that's the last pointer in the top of this image. At Borgarfjörður Eystri, that's the village in the northeastern part. This is an image from there showing the very small school where we operated or installed the first air quality unit. And the picture of it is here. It is a device that saves energy in the sense that when it's replacing air or fresh air, let's say, and pushing out the foul air or air that's identified as not being of as good quality as as we define with the unit, then there's a heat exchanger inside, and the heat from the indoor air is then preserved or used to heat up the outdoor air coming in, and it's called a fresh air unit. It's actually based on a concept by an Icelandic architect, but it's a commercial product now at the company in Holland or Netherlands. Our next place was even more difficult than Borgarfjörður Eystri in terms of size of population. It's often when you're working on these projects, the biggest challenge is to be able to actually enter into or communicate with people living in these areas and convince them that we are doing something positive for their communities. And this is an island of roughly 34 houses. So and the population can drop to almost zero, depending on time of year. But it's quite crowded in summertime. It's a popular location to visit. There is an imaginary school there on this picture, but there was an upgraded version of this unit. Now I'm worried that I don't have the right slide. Can you see the name of this one? I'll see what happens, but it's is this me? Okay. I see.
Do you want me to share it?
No, that's fine. Okay, so I'm roughly here. So it's an upgraded unit, so that's fully connected to the net with a Wi-Fi communication system, and so we can operate it and change parameters from a distance, which is something that was a requirement of this project also. And we can read at any time what we are benefiting from it. In the sort of the next to last graph shows the energy we are saving that we would otherwise have to use to provide new fresh air at correct temperature, and this would correspond to roughly over this period of 1 month, last July, maybe up to 30 liters of oil. And this is even though Iceland is fully renewable, we are using geothermal and hydropower mostly for our renewable grid and heating of all houses. We are on the island of Grímsey. That's an exception that we sort of have to live with, that we are using oil there, but it's only 0.00 something of the total amount of energy produced in Iceland. So it's a very little, but it's something that we want to change now, and we're starting to work on that with this project and one other project also. We are using the SEM model to sort of identify our approach. So we can mark sort of a path on this image, how exactly what solution we picked, and what we're implementing from the SEM model for both this unit and the air quality sensor that I will show you in a minute. The final location for our project is the town of Akureyri, and that's a town of roughly 20,000 people, as I think I said at the beginning. but it's servicing an area of that has inhabitants up to 30,000 roughly in the northern part of Iceland. We have not so much pollution from buildings because we are using geothermal and electricity renewable, but we have pollution from cars, and we of course envisage that this will disappear with electrified vehicles, but they will still have. It's a Nordic place, so you will also have issues with tires and studded tires creating particles when these cars are used on our roads. So the sensors are giving us a warning if there are many particles out there, and then we have to do something to prevent or help the children really with the air quality. There are a number of projects that have been executed in the town of Akureyri. It has much of it is of course much of the initiative has come from to give them credit, I mean, from the municipality, but I would probably say that most of it is coming from Orkusetur and associate partner actually owned by the municipality called Vistorka, and they have been pushing for all kinds of educational material for all ages, of course, but mostly targeting the young people, because that's the generation that will be using the clean energy solutions. There is as an example of one application, there is an app that was developed called Korter, but this is sort of the manual version of it, where you use a basic ruler, a magnetic ruler that you can place on a map, and it tells you how far you can walk within a certain time limit of 15 minutes. So you can easily see visually how far you have to go and what options you have, walking or biking or everything apart from asking your parents to give you a lift. And this is the app version. You can download it. It works everywhere, told in the world. It works in Sundsvall. So and there are a few. If you go to Vistorka, I believe these videos are all stored there, and you see Siggi, my associate, on all of these videos. So help yourselves. The sensor that we picked for the outdoor sensing adventure is a French design. It's a company called Ethera, and we picked them because they make many of these sensors themselves. They're not only the company that sort of assembles the sensors, but they also design the electrical boards. So we actually did have to use. We were happy to select them because we had some issues that then could be solved by re-engineering the electric boards for our project. But I think that will also benefit them for other sort of other projects at the periphery of European telecommunication networks, because this is using it was supposed to be the 3G system or one of those standards, but we had to downgrade it to 2G for our area. Okay, and this is just an example of an output just taken just before coming here. It's most of the parameters. It's still this version is not showing the CO2, but you can see the PM values, and if you look closely at the bottom of this graph, at the bottom of this graph, you will see changes in the particles during the day, traffic coming in the morning and leaving in the evening and so forth. And we also have, of course, in Iceland, we sometimes have sort of sandstorms coming from the highlands, erosion basically. So that would show also up, and then of course if we have volcano eruptions somewhere in the vicinity, but that's another story. We are at the, let's say, in the last year of the project, we were lucky to start sort of a collaboration with the environmental agency, I think they're called, Umhverfisstofa. They are a nationwide institution owned by the government, and they publish on their own instrument network the air quality values, and we will be integrating our sensors in their network. So I think that it was very good for us to be able to utilize the data immediately for a wider audience, not only the schools. Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ragnar. And we are speeding ahead to Paul and Paul from Ireland, and they are going to give you a short summary of their pilots.
We're going to just,
Okay.
okay, we're going to switch, and our partners from Lapland University of Applied Sciences were unfortunately not able to join us today, but they did provide us with a video to just give a recap of their efforts. So I will share that now while we're working at the network issues here. Okay. It's not sharing, is it?
I can actually go ahead here if you want.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can all hear me. Sorry about that. There was just a slight problem there with the network. We're here to talk about our presentation, myself and my colleague here, Paul Duddy. And we're based in Letterkenny in County Donegal, which is in the northwest coast of Ireland. And Letterkenny has a population of about 25,000 people. And we both work for Donegal County Council Local Authority. Again, as part of our, obviously what underpinned our approach towards this project was the SEM template, and the output of the SEM template is to enable other people to try to adapt the pilot that you're developing. And there's what underpinned it, which was pick a network within sensors, measure the data, and let the pilot consume your data, then map it with community engagement. So what we did was we picked, part of our pilot was the intelligent management of public indoor environments, and also putting in solar panels as a renewable alternatives for the buildings. We had to identify a number of buildings in the community. And in terms of solar energy and renewable energy, Donegal is probably slightly behind the curve in this field. So we had identified a number of community buildings, and then we had to change to different buildings because of COVID, and we couldn't get access to them. So we identified a number of buildings that basically were completely dependent on fossil fuel. And so that was, we had to measure the electricity and the heating which was consumed by the buildings. And so we worked with the building managers or the stakeholders. They weren't really building managers, they were budget holders who basically just paid the bills and didn't really think too much about the energy, but were concerned at how much they were spending on energy. So there's some of the sensors we used. These are 4 of the community buildings, and they're quite disparate in nature. One of them is a listed building there, 1845 it was built, then the county library right up to 2002. And obviously all of those buildings are in different stages of, I guess, repair. The theatre is full of open spaces. It's got a different energy requirement in terms of there's performances at night time where most energy requirement takes place, as opposed to during the day where the library and the museum would be. There's one other building as well, which is the Regional Cultural Centre, which isn't in that. So all those buildings are completely dependent, apart from the PSC, on fossil fuels. So we carried out site surveys. We installed a number of sensors in each building for measuring the energy consumption. We also installed a number of footfall sensors, humidity and temperature sensors, because we felt that the occupancy rate in the building also obviously had an impact on the amount of energy that would be consumed. And so that was all measured via an energy management system. And we also had to input manual bills from the previous 12 months, and we imported consumed data from existing sensors in there. The existing sensors were minimal. There were some footfall sensors already in the library from a previous project. We also looked at building plans for the square meters in each of the buildings. What we really wanted to do with this was to engage a community of people in the buildings to basically take charge of their understand, manage how their building consumed energy and how it could be replaced by alternative sources. And what we found is a lot of people really don't have much of an understanding about how energy can be managed. So basically, this energy management system, we give access to all the stakeholders or all the building owners. And these are fairly intuitive. They're very common out there. What we did was we enabled the stakeholders to compare and contrast their energy usage, overlay the graphs on top of, so you could directly compare your building's energy usage against a comparable building in terms of the size and makeup of the building. So in terms of community energy management, some of the things that we found that the output of this project was you need to identify the relevant people. You need to set up and manage the stakeholder group. You need to work with the stakeholders to use the energy management system. A lot of these people had no interaction previously with any technology like this. They were just paying bills on a monthly basis, and that was as far as they interacted with the building. There was no energy certificates for any of these buildings either, which was a surprise to us. So we had to procure, well, they're actually DEC certs to actually say how much the energy rating of each building. The outcome of it was, working with the group, we identified which buildings would benefit most from solar installations, and we installed thermal glazing on inside one of the buildings, and we also had to upgrade insulation in 4 of the buildings. So it's just to give you an idea of, like, one of these buildings, the heritage site, we would have needed planning permission to install solar panels on the roof. We decided to install them in infrastructure at the back of the building instead. And this is some of the calculations we did, basically using an app, in terms of what we anticipate the actual solar farms to generate annually, and the annual consumption of the buildings at the moment. So we're hoping that it will have a decent impact in terms of the theatre and the Regional Cultural Arts Centre, because we've installed also 2 5-kilowatt batteries in each of those sites, so they can store the power during the day and use it for performances at night. So basically this has had, it's relatively straightforward what we've done, but it's had a big impact on the people, because we've started from a very low base, and they're working together now as a group, whereas beforehand they were individually operating in a vacuum. And so again, these are some of the outcomes of our pilot. Stakeholders must be enabled to take control of their own energy decision making. Need for education and training to help stakeholders to understand the technologies. They must understand and relate to the local and national policies which are being implemented at the moment. They must have an energy plan in place with realistic targets and achievable goals, and everything must be measured. And this is just a video, I guess, from the stakeholders to show the impact it's had on them. So I don't know, can anybody hear that? All right, so stop sharing. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Well, listen, we can skip the video. It's about 4 minutes long anyway.
Okay,
So
well,
I'm happy enough to.
we can share that.
Yeah. So that's really, our pilot was really focused on trying to get the community to work together from a point where they were completely dependent on fossil fuels. They had no energy understanding, and they were just paying quite large bills for their energy. And it's worked out quite well for us in terms of the impact it's had. So
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
And I think we're gonna put the video just here by link, so you can watch it yourself. Anne-Marie, are we putting it in the chat?
Yeah,
or-
we need to get the link and we can add that in there. So, and we'll send it out afterwards as well, and the same for.
Okay, so we will send it out afterwards. And we will jump ahead to me, Västernorrland, actually. Just a second. You all see me, my presentation? Okay, great. So at Region Västernorrland, at the Energy Office at the Regional Council of Västernorrland, we are participating in the SMARCTIC project with a pilot where we're using smart technology to measure, monitor, and improve energy efficiency in public buildings in Kramfors municipality. It's located in the County of Västernorrland. At the same time, we're also working with measures to raise awareness about energy consumption among the users of the buildings involved in the pilots. So we have been working in 2 schools. To the left, you have Ådalsskolan, and to the right, you have Skarpåkersskolan. So at Ådalsskolan, it's a high school students at a vehicle program. So there we have worked with different kind of installations. Example, you can see down below, programming to control and break flows of the air heaters closest to the garage doors to prevent hot air from escaping. We have worked with ventilation, so it has been optimized with presence control so that air flows are reduced when there is no activity in the workshop. We also have control so that you can indicate on the screen when there are favorable conditions to keep doors open in the room. If you open the door, the air flows are lowered. So all of this is connected to a screen where we can follow this by different kind of I'm going to show you the screen. So we have also been using workshops as a tool to raise awareness. So this is the energy panel where you can see a smiley face, and the smiley will get sadder and sadder when you use more energy, and then go back to the happy smiley face when we are saving energy. So for Ådalsskolan, since there are students that are higher, they are older, so they have different kind of screens. That we have one screen, but different kind of panel views that will roll over time, so you can measure different kind of things. So at Skarpåkersskolan, we have elementary students, and they have their own department. So there was 3 classes in their own space. So there we actually just have optimize the floor heating in the room so that the temperature can be controlled based on the season and outside temperature. So here you have the screen, and we're working with behavior changes. For example, we have workshops, and we let the kids test everything, to just start everything from lights to kitchen aids, or everything that's possible to turn on, and then also to turn it off, just to see the changes of the smiley face. So overall in this project, we have met some challenges. We inherit a project from another party. We have change of internal staff. We had a pandemic, so we had supply chain products that wasn't as we thought they would be. And also we learned that communication is really important with stakeholders and suppliers and everyone around. So even though we have these challenges, we have the results until now, and it's a little bit of data, and also that the teacher noticed changes in the student behaviors. Everything from when they're in the classroom, they're going to turn off the light when they go out again. So we do see some changes, and hopefully they take this with them back home and do the same. So if you have any questions, you can email me. See my address down below. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave the word to Anne-Marie from Ireland.
Okay. I was planning on sharing a video on behalf of our partner from Lapland University of Applied Sciences, but since we're behind schedule, we're actually supposed to finish in a few minutes, and we have another speaker. We will. I'll share what I can in the chat, and then we will also send out links to the videos we're not able to share today afterwards. So I will leave it to you, Sophia or Sandra, to introduce our last speaker.
Okay, so we're gonna go to our speaker, Matthias O'Neill. Just want to make sure that it works for you. Sorry. Okay, so Matthias is from Mid Sweden University, and he's going to talk a little bit about the potential of IoT-based solutions.
Yes, you still not can hear me.
I was gonna talk a bit about the project that we are running, which is focused on reduction of CO2 emissions from construction machinery. Can change the slide. Just an introduction to who we are. I'm at the Mid Sweden University. I'm heading a research center that is called STC, Sensible Things That Communicate, that work with AI, IoT, and sensors, mostly in combinations. We are about 100 researchers, not only here in Sundsvall, but also distributed in Europe and the world, with guest researchers and guest professors. We can jump to the next. And we do remote control, autonomous control of vehicles. You see a picture here of a timber loader and a wheelchair that we work with, different companies. We have AI in combination with IoT and different variants. We have looked at reduction of diesel consumption from buses with help of IoT and AI. I will go into that. And also different kind of measurements, partially timber measurement without seeing the timber, just using IoT data. We have quite a lot of activities around IoT technology, 5G technology, behind it all, and also sensor system in combination with IoT, where we have a picture at the top of a snow depth sensor that we have developed with a set of companies and the municipalities in the region to enable smarter planning of snow clearance. Next slide. So when we started this, we looked in reducing CO2 emissions from mobility, and we hovered in that this is the CO2 footprint in Sweden, what it comes from. And there are two parts that comes from mobility. The bigger one, which comes from transport. And the other one that comes from construction machinery. And we focused on construction machinery because there is a lot of done on electrification of transports, which is not as simple for construction machinery, I would say. So we hovered in on that. We can do the next slide. And look in what kind of footprint comes from these, and the main sources comes from construction and infrastructure machinery, agriculture and forestry. So we will focus on construction and infrastructure in this project. You can go to the next slide. And we did a project that were inspiration to this with a bus company and an IoT company. We looked into basically what they have done is that they have registered all the transportation with the buses in this bus company, which is a lot of buses, a lot of transportations, and all the sensor data connected to this, including fuel consumption. And if you click once more, Sophia, using an IoT and presenting this to the drivers, how they perform when it comes to diesel consumption, the total consumption of diesel reduced by 500,000. Just by getting the feel how much I consume compared to others, which was astonishing how big difference was. It was 2.5 times between the guy that consumed the least and the most. Then we did an AI model from this IoT data that predicted if you put one driver in a specific bus on a specific tour, how much will it consume? We achieved, I think, around 5% accuracy in that model. So it's very accurate in predicting this. And when we simulated this on the whole bus population and the driver population, the potential of using this model for optimizing the whole system was another 500,000 liters. So inspired by that, you can move on. So that's half, and the next also. We would see how can this translate to construction machinery. And if you push one more. The question there, I mean, for buses, it's easy. It's liter per kilometers. That is the target that we're trying to optimize. But for construction machinery, it's much more difficult. And when we did analysis of the market and how this is handled, the procurement of these services is usually driving increased CO2 emissions because it's purely procured on the lowest bidder, and which result in very low margins for this kind of activities, which they try to get the machinery working for 100%, perhaps not doing much use, but getting them running. So we try to identify how can we produce a KPI that really capture that it has performed something useful. Next. You can push 3 times there to get rid of the. So we try to detect activities by using IoT in combination with AI. So basically trying to identify if the machine is idling, which it could do for winter, just for heat, which could be solved in much better ways than having 150, 200 horsepower motor just producing heat. Identifying if it's just moving, transportation, or if it's digging or any other activity that would end up. So then it's a question how to do this in the next. You can push, I think, 5 times there, just to get. I had to translate this just. So in this analysis, we find that this we could use for producing climate smart machinery to the vehicles themselves, but that's not really a task for us. It's more for the vehicle producers. You could use this for producing a climate smart fleet. So you're trying to optimize the whole system, basically as we did with the buses. And you can also have this as base for climate smart driving, also the same way as we did for the buses, making the drivers aware of what they are doing. And also this could be for accounting, producing better procurement of these services. Oh, I don't see the top there, but yeah. Then if you can go to the next. This would be simple if it would be one manufacturer, all new machines. Part of this is implemented in like CAT and Volvo. But this is not how it looks. If we push another one and another one. I mean, there are other brands and there are really old machines that don't have any electronics in them or smartness. So what we did, if you push next, is that we started to look into making an IoT node that could be assembled to any machine. And from movement and other parameters that is measured, we make an AI model that can classify what this actual vehicle is doing at the moment. So we get these tags of idling, moving, digging, or transporting, or whatever. If you push, so basically attach an IoT node to the machinery. And this, you can go to the end slide there. So in this project, which basically has just started, we have done the analysis, we have done initial trials. The goal is to try to find this IoT AI-based solution that can identify and reduce CO2 emissions and enable planning, procurement, and accounting. So we get the tools of really starting to work with this kind of machinery also to optimize CO2 footprints from them. And the team, it's we at the university, several SME companies, the region, the Sundsvall city, and an AI company that works with this. And I think it's a fun project, and it's also, I think there is something there that can be used. Yes.
Okay, so thank you a lot, everyone, for your sharing of your pilots and information. I'm gonna leave the word to Anne-Marie to have some closing words for this conference. Thank you.
Hi again, everyone. First of all, thank you again, Sophia and Sandra, for organizing and hosting and for welcoming those of us who were able to travel, some of us for the first time in a long time, to come here to meet in person. Some really interesting presentations, and we'll definitely be talking afterwards, I think. But So yeah, thank you again for hosting the closing conference. As I said, we still have some work to do, and we will be sharing the results of all the work and everything else that we're putting together for the SMARCTIC project, and promoting the website that'll contain all that information when we're finished. So thank you again. Thank you for participating. Sorry we kept you a few minutes late.